I'll get that. Hello, Fred. Hello, Woody. Goodbye, Woody.
What changes has this hit TV series made in your life?
Not too many, other than the fact that I sleep at night now instead of sleeping in the day as I did when I was working at a nightclub.
What actually happened? I was working in a nightclub in Los Angeles, and Aaron Rubin, the producer, he happened to be in the club that night.
You've probably seen that clickbait title floating around the internet. You know the one. The infamous scene that took Sanford and Son off the air. Maybe you even clicked on this video, expecting to hear about some shocking moment that supposedly ended one of television's most beloved sitcoms forever. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's not exactly what happened. The real story behind how Sanford and Son came to an end is actually way more complicated, way more dramatic, and honestly, way more interesting than any single controversial scene could ever be. Before we dive into the real truth, let me paint you a picture of just how massive this show was back in the 1970s. Sanford and Son wasn't just popular. It was a cultural phenomenon. Every Friday night at 8 o'clock, millions of American families would gather around their television sets to watch Fred Sanford and his son Lamont bicker, scheme, and somehow always find their way back to each other by the end of each episode. The show was so big that it helped NBC dominate the ratings for years. It was groundbreaking television that featured a mostly black cast at a time, when that was incredibly rare on primetime TV. But here's the thing about massive success in Hollywood. It always comes with massive egos, massive money disputes, and massive drama behind the scenes. And boy, did Sanford and Son have all three of those things in spades. Let's start with the man himself, Redd Foxx. Now, Redd was a comedy legend long before Sanford and Son ever existed. He'd been doing stand-up comedy for decades, working the Chitlin circuit, releasing comedy albums that your parents probably hid from you because they were so raunchy. The man knew how to make people laugh, but he also knew his worth. And as Sanford and Son became more and more successful, Redd started feeling like NBC and the show's producers weren't paying him what he deserved. Picture this. It's 1974, right in the middle of the show's third season. The series is at the peak of its popularity. Ratings are through the roof. Everyone's making money hand over fist. Everyone except Redd Foxx, or at least that's how he felt about it. The man was the star of the show. Without Fred Sanford, there was no Sanford and Son. But Redd felt like he was being treated like just another employee instead of the irreplaceable talent that he was. So what did he do? He walked off the set. Just like that. In the middle of filming. Can you imagine the chaos that must have caused? Here you have this massive hit show, and your lead actor just disappears. The producers were scrambling. NBC was panicking. And poor Demond Wilson, who played Lamont, was probably wondering if he still had a job. Now, officially, Redd's people said he was suffering from nervous exhaustion and back problems. They claimed the stress of the show was making him sick, that his marriage was falling apart because of his busy schedule. But behind the scenes, everyone knew this was really about money. Redd wanted more cash, and he was willing to shut down production to get it. The crazy part is that NBC actually had to write Redd out of the show for 6 whole episodes. They came up with a storyline where Fred Sanford was in St. Louis attending his cousin's funeral. 6 episodes. The show had to go on without its main character. Can you imagine watching Sanford and Son without Fred Sanford? It would be like watching a Batman movie without Batman. But even crazier than that, there were rumors flying around Hollywood about what really went down during that walkout. Some people claimed that Redd showed up to the studio, carrying a pearl-handled revolver. Now, whether that's true or not, nobody knows for sure. But it gives you an idea of just how intense things got between Redd and the network. Eventually, they worked things out. Redd came back to the show, and for a while, everything seemed to be back to normal. The ratings stayed strong, the laughs kept coming, and America fell in love with the Sanford family all over again. But the damage was done. That walkout created cracks in the relationship between Redd and the producers that would never fully heal. Fast forward to 1977. The show had been on the air for 6 successful seasons. It had made stars out of Redd Foxx and Demond Wilson. It had broken barriers and changed television forever. But success in Hollywood is a funny thing. The more successful you become, the more opportunities start coming your way. And sometimes those opportunities can be too tempting to resist. ABC came knocking on Red's door with an offer he thought he couldn't refuse. They wanted to give him his own variety show. The Red Fox Comedy Hour, they called it. It would be all Red, all the time. No more sharing the spotlight with anyone else. No more dealing with the creative restrictions of a sitcom. He could do his own thing, tell his own jokes, be the star he'd always wanted to be. Now, you have to understand, this wasn't just about money, although money was definitely part of it. This was about artistic freedom. Red had been doing edgy, controversial comedy for years before Sanford and Son. His stand-up routines were raw, unfiltered, and definitely not suitable for primetime television. On Sanford and Son, he had to tone things down, clean up his act for network censors. The variety show would let him be himself again. So Red made a decision to leave Sanford and Son. Just like that, one of the most successful partnerships in television history was over. NBC tried to keep the show going without him. They created a spin-off called Sanford Arms, focusing on the other characters from the original series. But let's be honest, who wanted to watch Sanford and Son without Sanford? The spin-off lasted exactly 4 episodes before it was canceled. Demond Wilson was offered the chance to star in Sanford Arms, but he had his own demands. He wanted more money, more creative control, and honestly, he was probably pretty frustrated with how everything had played out. When the network wouldn't meet his demands, he walked away too. So now you had a Sanford and Son spinoff without either Sanford or Son. It was doomed from the start. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Remember that variety show that Red left Sanford and Son for? The one that was supposed to make him a bigger star than ever? It was a complete disaster. The Red Fox Comedy Hour lasted exactly 4 months before ABC pulled the plug. For months, Red had given up one of the most successful shows in television history for something that didn't even make it half a year. The irony is almost too painful to think about. Red had everything. He was the star of a hit show, beloved by millions of fans, making good money, and working with a cast and crew that had become like family. But he wanted more. He wanted to be bigger, richer, more famous. And in reaching for all of that, he lost everything he already had. Of course, Hollywood being Hollywood, they tried to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. In 1980, NBC launched a new show simply called Sanford. It brought back Red Fox as Fred Sanford, but Demond Wilson refused to return as Lamont. The chemistry that had made the original show so special was gone. The new show struggled in the ratings and was canceled after just 1 season. Now, throughout all of this drama, there's something important we need to talk about. While there wasn't one specific scene that got Sanford and Son canceled, the show was definitely pushing boundaries throughout its entire run. This was the 1970s, remember? Television was just starting to deal with real social issues. Norman Lear, the producer of Sanford and Son, was known for creating shows that tackled controversial topics head-on. Sanford and Son dealt with racism, poverty, social inequality, and a whole bunch of other issues that most sitcoms wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. The show used language and dealt with situations that made some people uncomfortable. Fred Sanford would regularly use words and phrases that you definitely wouldn't hear on television today. The show talked about race relations in ways that were groundbreaking for its time but might seem outdated or even offensive to modern audiences. There were episodes that got censored or edited for reruns. There were scenes that made network executives nervous. There were jokes that pushed the envelope of what was acceptable on primetime television. But none of these things killed the show. The show died because of good old-fashioned Hollywood greed and ego. The really sad part is that Sanford and Son was more than just a sitcom. It was a cultural touchstone. For many African-American viewers, it was one of the few shows on television that reflected their experiences, their neighborhoods, their way of life. It showed black characters who were complex, funny, flawed, and real. It wasn't trying to present some sanitized, perfect version of black life. It showed real people dealing with real problems, and it did it with heart and humor. The show also launched careers and opened doors for other black actors, writers, and producers. It proved that shows with predominantly black casts could be massive mainstream successes. It paved the way for shows like Good Times, The Jeffersons, and countless others that followed. When Sanford and Son ended, it wasn't just the end of a television show. It was the end of an era. It marked the end of a time when a sitcom could be edgy, controversial, and socially relevant while still being incredibly funny and entertaining. Modern television has given us some amazing shows, but very few have had the cultural impact that Sanford and Son had during its 6-year run. Looking back now, it's clear that everyone involved made some pretty big mistakes. Red probably should have stayed with the show that made him a star. NBC probably should have done more to keep their biggest asset happy. Damon Wilson probably should have been more flexible when it came to the spinoff. But that's the thing about hindsight. It's always 2020. The legacy of Sanford and Son isn't the behind-the-scenes drama or the contract disputes or the failed spinoffs. The legacy is the laughter. It's the groundbreaking television that showed America a different side of the black experience. It's the father-son relationship at the heart of the show that resonated with families of all backgrounds. It's Fred Sanford clutching his chest and calling out to his deceased wife Elizabeth whenever things got too stressful. "I'm coming, Elizabeth." This is a big one. Those words became part of American culture. They're still quoted and referenced today, almost 50 years after the show first aired. That's the real measure of Sanford and Son's impact, not how it ended, but how it lived. The show proved that television could be more than just mindless entertainment. It could be a mirror that reflected society back to itself, warts and all. It could make people laugh while also making them think. It could break down barriers and challenge assumptions while still telling stories that touch the heart. So no, there wasn't one infamous scene that took Sanford and Son off the air. The truth is much more human than that. It's a story about success and failure, about dreams and disappointments, about the price of fame and the cost of ego. It's about how sometimes, in reaching for everything, we can end up with nothing. The show ended not with a bang, but with a whimper, not because of controversy or censorship, but because of the very human flaws of the people who made it. And maybe that's more fitting than any dramatic scandal could have been. After all, Sanford and Son was always about human nature in all its messy, complicated, beautiful glory. In the end, the real story of how Sanford and Son ended is a reminder that behind every piece of entertainment we love, there are real people with real problems, real ambitions, and real limitations. The magic we see on screen is often a result of very unmagical struggles happening behind the scenes. But the magic was real while it lasted. For 6 years, Sanford and Son brought families together every Friday night. It made people laugh, made them think, and made them feel. And decades later, that magic is still there, waiting for new generations to discover it. The show may have ended in disappointment and missed opportunities, but its impact on television, on comedy, and on American culture is undeniable. It changed what was possible on television. It opened doors that had been closed for too long. And it reminded us all that laughter really is the best medicine, even when life gets complicated. So the next time you see one of those clickbait titles promising to reveal the shocking scene that ended your favorite show, remember the story of Sanford and Son. Remember that the real stories are usually more complicated, more human, and ultimately more interesting than any simple scandal could ever be. The truth isn't always as dramatic as the myths, but it's always more real. And sometimes, that's exactly what we need to hear. If this video helped you understand the real story behind one of television's most beloved sitcoms, please hit that like button and share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the real stories behind your favorite shows and movies. Because the truth is always worth telling, even when it's not as simple as we'd like it to be.